Hello and welcome back to Football Daily, where with all of Europe's top leagues having just concluded, we are running through with the help of you guys on Twitter, the 10 biggest mistakes of the 2020-21 season. Let's get straight into it. 10. Mikel Arteta's selection. As @Stuart Kirk pointed out on Twitter, Mikel Arteta has been his own worst enemy at points this season. Coming off the back of a 14th FA Cup victory, Arsenal spent a net £60 million last summer, 25 million more than champions Liverpool, but haven't really seen any improvement. They only won more than 2 league games in a row twice, and despite a solid defence that ranked 3rd in the division, they struggled massively up front, with 8 sides topping their 55 goals. And manager Arteta has to take his fair share of the blame. After scoring 5 goals in their opening 2 games against Fulham and West Ham, they only managed 7 in their next 12, as his 3-4-3 or 4-3-3 formation left his forwards increasingly isolated. Arsenal lost 8 of those games and fell an insurmountable 10 points behind the top 4. Finally, Arteta changed it, permanently introducing a number 10 in either Smith Rowe or Ødegaard to bind the play and add attacking cohesion. The results were instantaneous, as Arsenal lost just 5 of their final 23 league games, with only Man City topping their 44 points in that period. Too little, too late. 9. Werder Bremen keeping Rashica. We often criticise clubs over failing to sign players, or worse, signing the wrong ones here at FD. But as AVFC Barry pointed out, on this occasion we need to call out a side for failing to cash in. 2019-20 saw 24-year-old Kosovo international Milot Rashica leap to worldwide attention, with his 8 goals and 5 assists single-handedly keeping Werder Bremen in the Bundesliga. The club's top goalscorer, provider, shot taker, chance creator and dribbler, it was clear the former Vitesse Flyer had outgrown the River Islanders, and clubs like Villa, Leicester and Southampton were linked with a £33 million move. For a club that has only spent over £10 million on a single player once in its history, this was a huge amount of money, but all approaches were rebuffed by Werder. And this season has been a very different story, with Rashica playing well below his best, having missed 12 games with a variety of injury issues. 3 goals and 1 assist in 24 league games has seen his transfer market value plummet to just over 10 million. Strangely enough, Werder Bremen's decision to keep Rashica rather than sell and invest in the team might well have cost them their Bundesliga status, after being relegated for the first time since 1980. 8. Liverpool centre-backs. @Jody Shepherd was right to suggest the impact of Dejan Lovren's £10 million transfer to Zenit last July. Jurgen Klopp inexplicably went into this campaign with Van Dijk, Gomez and Matip his only senior centre-backs, despite the fact Gomez had missed at least 15 games in 3 of the previous 5 seasons and Matip at least 10 in 3 of his 4 on Merseyside. Of course, no one could have predicted that the 3 of them would have played a combined 1,650 league minutes combined, less than Jordan Henderson alone, who's been out since late February. But when Klopp had a chance to fix things in the winter window, he waited until deadline day to sign 20-year-old Ozan Kabak on loan and Ben Davies from Preston. For a club that has prided itself on its organisation in recent windows, this smacked of desperation. Liverpool lost 7 of their 8 games following the January window, conceding 12 goals, with their Champions League hopes put in jeopardy in the process. We can't help thinking that while the injuries were incredibly unfortunate, Liverpool's transfer business left them woefully unprepared. 7. The Mourinho sacking. There are 2 ways of looking at Jose Mourinho's sacking: that Spurs should have done it earlier, or that they shouldn't have done it at all. Very few people would argue that the relationship between the two was working out. After going top in November, the Lily Whites took just 32 points from a possible 72, 27 fewer than Man City, 16 fewer than United, and 1 less than Burnley managed in the same time frame. This period also saw them concede 5 goals to Everton in the FA Cup and exit the Europa League after Dinamo Zagreb overturned a 2-0 first leg deficit. With the side 5 points behind 4th place Chelsea following a 2-2 draw at Goodison, Daniel Levy sacked Mourinho, the man who he'd labelled as one of the best 2 coaches in the world just 17 months earlier. The timing though was baffling, coming just 6 days before the Carabao Cup final against Man City. Mourinho had beaten Pep 7 times during his career, a figure topped only by Klopp, whereas his replacement Ryan Mason had managed 1 game. A tame 1-0 defeat followed as Spurs lost their 4th final in 7 seasons. The North London outfit were going nowhere under Mourinho, but @BenAsh66 was right to call out the timing of the decision. 6. Schalke's recruitment. Despite finishing 12th in 2019-20, 8 points clear of the relegation playoff, it was clear that Schalke needed some serious investment. They had only won one of their final 19 games of the season, conceding 4 goals or more in 5 of those games. But struggling with financial issues that had left the club in more than £172 million worth of debt, Schalke only spent £1.8 million last summer. And it wasn't like they made anything from their sales either, with experienced players such as Caliguri, Rudy and Bergstaller signed for a combined £18 million, either released or loaned out in order to get their wages off the books. The same thing happened with their youth. Nubel left for Bayern on a free, McKennie joined Juve on a season-long loan, while Kabak joined Liverpool for a 6-month spell in January. Schalke brought in experienced pros such as Mustafi, Kolasinac and Huntelaar in the winter window to very little effect, and 5 separate managers were powerless to fix the mess of the last few years. Historically Germany's 3rd largest club, they'll play in the 2nd tier for the first time in 30 years next season. 5. Madrid selling their youth. Over the last few seasons, Real Madrid fans have seen a whole generation of Los Blancos youth depart the club, much to our and Janice 30 FYI's concern. Since the start of 2019-20, Hakimi, Kovacic, Llorente, Reguilón and Teo Hernandez have all left the club, while Ceballos, Brahim Diaz and Ødegaard have all spent time away on loan. The reasons for this are twofold. Firstly, in the case of the midfielders, their path to the first team was blocked by one of the greatest triumvirates the game has ever seen, while Ødegaard and Diaz struggled to integrate into Zidane's preferred 4-3-3 formation. And secondly, this was to fund an enormous £319 million spending spree in the summer of 2019, £62 million more than they had ever spent in a single window, as they brought in Rodrigo, Militao, Mendy, Jovic and the £103 million Hazard. While Rodrigo, Militao and Mendy clearly have massive futures at the club, they have struggled to propel Real Madrid back to European stardom, and this exodus of youth has meant that when Zidane's side was stuck with over 60 separate injuries this season, they struggled to maintain form. Imagine if it had been Hakimi who played 17 games at right back rather than Vasquez. There's every chance they would have won La Liga. 4. Celtic not sacking Lennon. Celtic have endured a chastening campaign after dropping points in just 4 of their 30 league games in 2019-20. They failed to win 16 of their 38 this term, as bitter rivals Rangers ended their hopes of the fabled 10 in a row, finishing unbeaten 25 points ahead of the Hoops. Not only that, but they conceded 19 goals in 6 Europa League games, with no side letting in more. Their long-held advantage in Old Firm games that saw them lose just 2 of their 17 meetings between September 2016 and December 2019 has completely evaporated, with Rangers unbeaten against them in the last 6. And to top a disastrous year, they also faced the wrath of the Scottish Government for an ill-fated spell to Dubai during the height of the pandemic. This ultimately cost Neil Lennon his job, but Celtic waited until the end of February, by which time Rangers had opened up a 15-point gap to finally sack the increasingly spiky manager. And with long-term chief executive Peter Lawwell stepping down this summer and star striker Odsonne Edouard set to follow him out of the door, the boys have thus far failed to appoint a replacement. Tricky times in the green half of Glasgow, as Ryan Hall pointed out on Twitter. 3. Juventus not hiring Pochettino. From one club refusing to sack a manager to another who simply appointed the wrong one, it's now abundantly clear that Juventus made a mistake in not hiring Mauricio Pochettino last summer. The 49-year-old was out of work, having been fired after 5.5 glorious years in charge of Tottenham, in which he made them Champions League regulars and reached 2 finals playing entertaining football. But while many people's memories of Pochettino at Spurs will feature the movement and interchange of the likes of Kane, Eriksen and Ali, the bedrock of the Argentine's success in North London was actually their defence. The Lily Whites conceded just 136 league goals across his final 4 campaigns, a figure only bettered by Man City's 130 in the same period. This defensive nous could have helped Juve recover from their worst season in 9 years under Sarri. The old lady might have secured Champions League football by the skin of its teeth, but there is a very good chance that the club will be seeking a 3rd manager in 3 years imminently, and will be left to rue the summer they missed out on Poch. 2. Barcelona selling Suarez to Atletico. We were in total agreement with @FIFA Connor 15 that Barcelona's decision to sell Luis Suarez last summer was a massive mistake. As soon as Ronald Koeman was appointed in August 2020, he made it clear that the then 23-year-old Suarez, scorer of 21 goals last season and the club's 3rd highest scorer of all time, was no longer wanted. Juve were instantly interested, but with their non-EU roster already filled, Suarez had to secure Italian citizenship to seal the move. After it became clear that he couldn't until October the 6th, After the Champions League squads were announced, the old lady elected to go for a Morata instead. But Koeman was so determined to get rid of Suarez, he approved his £6.3 million move to Atletico Madrid. The rest, as they say, is history. Suarez has scored 21 league goals, 8 more than anyone not called Messi in Koeman's squad, as Los Rojiblancos won their first title in 7 years, finishing 7 points ahead of Barca. The Blaugrana, meanwhile, are set to sign Aguero, who will be 33 next month. You really couldn't write it. 1. The European Super League. We didn't need any help with this one. Quite clearly, the European Super League was the biggest mistake of not just this season, but arguably the last decade. An ill-thought-out and poorly prepared idea that infuriated pundits, players and managers alike, and did more to create an even larger divide between the owners of the Dirty Dozen and their fans. The ESL was quite simply a 48-hour car crash. With no PR, branding that looked like it had been designed by a GCSE student, and no spokesperson, it was left to Florentino Perez to expose himself as the most out-of-touch man in football. The Champions League doesn't work, young people don't enjoy football, and we need to change the length of matches were just 3 of the sentiments that came out of his mouth as he tried to defend the indefensible. The English clubs Inter, AC and Atletico pulled out within 48 hours. Some apologies were offered and they were hit with a frankly laughable 5% reduction in prize money next year. As for Real, Barca and Juve, they've refused to budge and might yet face expulsion from European competition, furthering their respective financial crises. What a complete disaster. So those were our 10 biggest mistakes of this season, but can you name any more? Let us know in the comments below and we'll get discussing. If you enjoyed this top 10, don't forget to leave us a like and why not click on screen right now for more great Football Daily content. Thanks for watching, bye for now.